and that's the integral between the two, and the integral is the Gini index is twice the cross-hatched area. Okay, so when the Lorentz curve is the diagonal, the Gini is 0 because the integral between the two is 0. When the Lorentz curve is the maximum inequality, so the Lorentz curve is here, then this area is a half. We double it and we get 1, which is maximum inequality. Okay? So Gini measures inequality and is a complete ranking. So given any two distribution, we can always rank, which you cannot do with the Lorentz curve. So from the Lorentz curve, which is a distribution, is an infinite, it's a curve. So it's got many parameters. Then we turn it into a single parameter, a real number between 0 and 1. So that's the easy part. And then we can compare it. You can always say one number is bigger than the other. Okay? If we have multi-dimensional, we can't. Okay? So that's a mathematical expression of the Gini coefficient, if you want to calculate, with the natural distribution. F is the income distribution. So f of y is the number of people whose income is the distribution, not the density. You know the difference, yes? So the number of people whose income is up to y or less. Okay? So if we take this integral here, then we get the Gini coefficient. And that's what it looks like. Okay? And we're going to have some discussion about numbers because they are important, because they're something you want to know. So this is the trend of Gini coefficient, in many countries from 1950 to the year 2000 and whatever it gets to, almost 2010 for Mexico. I don't know why Mexico got the most recent data very well. Okay, so you can follow the various countries. Bulgaria, for what you believe, that and the lowish Gini coefficient until the communist fell and then inequality shot up, which doesn't suggest inequality is necessarily that thing. Or as to say, Belgium is quite low here. Italy, what is Italy? Italy is this thing here, and that's come down quite a lot. It's only been measured since the mid-70s down here. Brazil is highest and no sign of getting any lower. Mexico is also very high. France was huge in the 40s and 50s, and then it came down and is now kind of in the blue. It is not apparent that there is a big trend one way or the other to me. Okay, there's a very disparate group of countries. So you have some. Well, you don't have really countries with very low development, except perhaps China in the 80s and so. So you got one post-war ex-Soviet bloc country, you got several European countries, some kind of emerging countries and so on. And the United States, there is a trend and so on. But of course, any of these indices don't take into account any change of inequality between states. So these are given the total income of Brazil. I just look at what happens in the relative income differences of Brazilian income. So a different way to look at inequality. What?
I was wondering which kind of policy that Bulgaria would have implemented to decrease the inequality.
Well, yeah, it's very difficult.
Maybe no policy, just effect.
Well, there are. I mean, yeah, that's what a lot of public economics is discussing. I'm going to discuss about Piketty, that has very clear ideas about what should be done, and so the answer hopefully would be. Yeah, do ask questions because that's nice. So if we look at this next chart, now this is an interesting chart that you don't find often because it runs counter to a lot of the arguments that are made. The central argument is there's been a huge, the medium in the last 50 years or 30 years, there's been a huge increase in inequality. argument one. Argument two, the recent austerity policies implemented since 2007, so this is much shorter than have increased inequality. So this picture here, however, takes a global view of inequality. So this is the total world. This is not inequality, this is this income distribution in the world. Okay? So the red line measures on the vertical axis the number of people whose income, this is a log scale, yes, it is a log scale. Okay? So I've got a logarithmic scale of income here. So the number of people whose income is $100 a year or less, the number, not the proportion, the number. Okay? So in 1820, about 50 million people had an income of $100 or less, measured in equivalents $1990. So the two figures are comparable, as much as you can compare dollars in 1820 with dollars in 2000. Okay? And then you can see that very few people have an equivalent income greater than $10,000 in, you know, what we're talking about, probably less than $1 million in the world. Okay, and that counts the king, the emperors. And then if you look at these charts here, so you look at 2000, similar shape, but much, you know, very fewer poor people, and the number of poor people, not much is the integral you need to look at. So these are densities, not distribution. Okay, and interestingly, in the 70s, you can see a clear drop, a clear kind of bimodal distribution. These are the people in the developing world, and these are the people in the, these are the people in the developed world, and these are the people in the developing world. This is China and India, essentially, and lots of African countries. And here is the West, the United States, Europe, etc. And now, with increasing income, in middle class income in a lot of countries of the world, this double lump, this double mode has vanished away. You still see a slight hint of it here, but is not. So this chart, I think, is interesting because it shows that the global inequality is undoubtedly coming down in the world. And the reason is because poor countries have become richer at a much faster pace than the rich countries. All rich countries have become richer, but when you have a growth rate of 2%, that seems fantastic. Whereas in China or in India, which is about a third of the world population put together, when they have an income growth of 7% is a disaster. Okay? So those countries become richer at a faster rate, and that pushes all these people from poverty to middle class. And that's a good thing, yes.
I was thinking about the fact that, actually, I was wondering whether there is any trade-off between the growth of developing countries and the growth of rich countries.
Well, that's a huge area of economics. There's endless, vast forests have been cut and turned into papers for papers being written on the subject. There is a sense that there is this called catching up. Okay, so there is convergence of the income level, and so yes, the poorer countries are growing faster than the richer one. This is not it's not always obvious, and in fact there are many exceptions, and there's a lot of debate whether this is going to imply complete convergence or whether at some point you remain asymptotically distant. So whether it's the growth rate that is catching up or whether it's the income level that catches up. If the growth rate catches up, then at some point all countries will grow at 5%, but that means that if the United States is twice as rich as China, we will always remain that. Certainly, I mean, if you want to take a really global view, then you should really look at China and India and nothing else, really, because they are the ones that drive these things here. add Brazil, Vietnam, Malaysia, some of the countries with more than 100 million people. But even you need a lot of them to make one India. That's got 1.8 billion.
But I saw there is nothing suggesting, no evidence suggesting that the growth of some countries may mean also the slowing down.
Oh no evidence at all of that. No. Sorry, I thought no. There's not. I mean, the cake, the total size of the cake is not fixed. It's not that because China grows faster than the United States or slower. If anything, there is certainly a complementarity. Because whenever you read any macro papers, which people shouldn't, but people do, they always say that a crisis, slowing down of the growth rate of China will be damaging the European and the US economy. That's certainly true. And vice versa, slowing down. There's been a bit of effect of outside Europe and the United States, the 2007 crisis has been fairly limited, but there has been some effect due to the fact that consumers in the Western world were buying fewer things from China and Vietnam and so on. Okay, so that's a different look that I think the income to the distribution is different. But I'm going to talk about Piketty soon, I think.
So,
Yeah.
but the Gini index doesn't consider, does the Gini index change if there is a, for example, proportional rise in all income?
No, that's a point.
That's the drawback.
It is a drawback, but that if you want to measure inequality, then that's why there are measures of poverty. And even they are kind of dubious because, am I talking about poverty now, or it might be? So to measure poverty, many measures of poverty are measured relative to the average income or the median income. So people, you are poor if your income is 2/3 of the median income of the country you live in.
We will always be poor. There will always be poor people from
There will always be poor people, but if, well, no, because, no, this is the median income, not the average income, it's 2/3.
Sorry.
Yeah. Even if it was the average, you could have that in arrow. So it's 2/3 below, that's kind of semi-official. Now, one is that, then there's the absolute measure of poverty, which says if you have less than $10 a day or $2 a day, or figure a day. Now, both of them have drawback, pros and cons. I anticipate the slides now, but that doesn't matter. So so median, why do you say people with median income? After all, I'm poor if I don't have enough to eat or to warm myself. It doesn't matter. I can become poor if nothing changes in my circumstances, simply because everybody else is becoming richer. Okay? So if the median income increases, I then become poor.
This is a relative measure.
It is a relative measure. Now, what was the argument of having such a measure is that there is a kind of sense that a country has an acceptable standard of living. Okay? So 2 centuries ago, if people didn't have heating in the house, well, that was tough. But that's it, nobody had heating in the house.